This video is sponsored by Dragon Trappers Lodge. Welcome back to Lizard of Doom. I am Max. Now I'm tackling something in this video that I teased a little while ago when I did a 3D printing video. I am going to paint this ginormous King Kong-esque creature called the Stone God. But I am going to be painting him up for an army I'm starting called the Apes of Rage, which is a Blades of Khorne Age of Sigmar army made entirely of monkeys. This is going to get interesting. So let's get into the painting. Remember to give my like button a little tickle, thank you very much. Remember to subscribe if you're new here. Let's go. I started on the skin tone with some Vallejo black red. I was going to paint this skin tone up like a demon of Khorne, like a giant bloodthirster type thing. So the black red was a very nice base. It's kind of pastel coloured and I was going to work up in brightness from here. Handsome chap. I then mixed that with red to create a black red and then glazed that over in thin layers. I built up the colour slowly because I wanted the transition to be nice and smooth it was. I then went for just pure red from Vallejo. Up again, just glazing in smaller and smaller areas throughout the day. This took me about a day to glaze up this skin. And then onto Vermilion from Vallejo. I did this again with a mix to start with, and then went to pure Vermilion in the end. This slow transition and glazing up through these colours is what created the nice, smooth, realistic skin tones on this lovely boy. He's got some lovely wrinkles on his face to highlight and pick out. He's got some striation on his chest and his muscles and across his knuckles. He is a very lovely sculpt. And now finally onto just the Vermilion in very small places. This helped me pick out muscle fibres and little bits of texture on the chest as well, just to make that pop out a little bit more. I then went over with the airbrush and did a thin layer of bloodletter glaze just to make it more red. I wanted to pick up that brightness just a little bit. After this I worked on the fur. I started off with Traitor Red from the Army Painter airbrush range. This is a very deep reddy brown and I wasn't going to follow the triad system as I normally do. I was going to kind of eyeball it from here. And I wasn't going to go too much depth with doing this. This was going to be picked out by an oil wash later on. I mixed some Cypress Brown with the Traitor Red to form a highlight to hit the high areas, and I was going to let the texture on the miniature do the work with an oil wash. After this I worked on what I thought would be obsidian armour with black and blue, but I would change my mind later to make it more match the regular Khorne stuff, gold or brass coloured. I then painted up the wooden handle on the spear exactly as I'd have done on the trees on the altar I built in previous weeks. This was a green base, then up through the hide colours for the Army Painter airbrush range until it was a nice light colour on top. The eyes were my next challenge. This was difficult to shape the irises. I used the black red again as the base of this iris. I then stippled in that Vermilion to create flecks of brightness in his eyes. And then pushing that even further, I used Vallejo Light Orange. After this, I had to get the pupils in place. Now this was daunting as I put all that work into the irises around it, but I got him right. First time. Oh yeah, no bonk eye for this gorilla. After this I did a small amount of bloodletter glaze in the corners of his eyes on the white, just to give it a little blood flow, make it look a little bloodshot, but not too much, just subtle. Then I used some gloss varnish to make his eyes look a little bit more real and shiny, and look at these beautiful peepers. The wounds on his chest were nice and easy. I started with some Screamer Pink and just plot that into the wounds here, not leaking out onto his skin, making sure I was very careful with placement of this. Then I gave a little glaze in there with a mix of red, Vallejo red that I'd used on the skin, and the Screamer Pink, and then brought back little striations on the edges of his muscles there with the Screamer Pink again. I would take this one step further to make it look like a fresh wound, And I would use some Tamiya Clear Red, just to be some red gooey blood in there. But again, I was going to hit this all with an oil wash, so this was going to be calmed down quite a lot, so I wasn't afraid of going quite bright with this. The beauty of Tamiya Clear Red is it's transparent and I can see all the highlights I've done through it. Now if you're wondering where the file for this big beautiful beast came from, that would be Dragon Trapper's Lodge. I reached out to them because I knew I was going to be painting this in the video. I said, hey, I'm painting your miniatures. Do you want to sponsor the video? And they said, yes. So I am now going to show you their brand new sets come out this month. They have a Patreon which you can join, and then you will get access to all of the different things coming out. There are different tiers. There are two primary tiers, the Trapper tier, which is more for RPG games, and the Soldier tier, which is more for war games. And they do support all of their wargame miniatures with one-page rules, or you can just proxy them into something like Warhammer like I'm doing here. You can also get both of these things together if you join their Veteran tier and their RPG module, which is pretty good. If you like something from their back catalogue, check out their My Mini Factory. Both their Patreon and their My Mini Factory will be linked down below this video. For the Trapper tier this month, they have this beautiful set, The Hunt for the Last Sea Angel. Now let me read their little flavour text for you here. Join Captain Mobius and his crew on a high seas adventure across the oceans in a bid to find and save the last Sea Angel dragon before a motley crew of pirates led by dread Captain Zaim can capture and kill the dragon for its wish-granting powers. Along the way, they will not only face pirates, but the perils of the high seas in the form of a massive kraken. This set features a 60-page D&D 5th edition adventure module for level 10 characters. I'm listening, I love D&D, so that's pretty good. If you want to run a sea-themed D&D campaign, definitely look this up. And for the Soldier tier, we have The Chosen of Kami Part 2, the second part of our latest one-page rules-compatible army. Warhammer proxy army. They look a bit like they could do good as Lumineth Realm Lords. This month sees a brand new Wind Dragon model coming to join the Dragon Pantheon for the faction, along with a host of infantry. From the highly skilled sword masters to the massive and powerful sumo warriors. The massive spirit boar also comes to help carry the kami over the battlefield, whilst also being a formidable beast of war itself. The Chosen of Kami are a celestial army formed of the souls of once great warriors, given new bodies by the gods, and sent down from the high heavens to do battle against the dark forces arising in the world. There is also a loyalty model, the Saucy Wyvern, so check that out as well. It's a fully playable ship with like interiors and everything. Have a look at that. So if you are interested in 3D printing miniatures, and especially stuff like this massive stone god that I'm painting in this video, check them out. Please make sure you do. It's very important to help support the sponsors that sponsor these videos, as I'm quite a small channel and they're taking a little bit of a risk by putting their stuff in my videos, and I thank them for that. So check out their Patreon and their My Mini Factory and let them know that Lizard of Doom sent you. Right, on with the painting! Next was the bone. I based this all with Steel Legion drab, and then got my cheap makeup brush out to do a bit of dry brushing. I dry brushed all the way up through the GW bone colours, that is Zandri Dust up to Ushabti Bone and then Screaming Skull, just in small areas. Wasn't too worried about this being a little bit messy. Again, the oil wash was going to be doing a lot of work for me on this project. The tabard and all the leathers now I did in my classic scratchy leather style. I used some Rhinox hide for the base, and then scratched on some Doomball brown, and then scratched over the top of that with some Tuscarora fur. Once that was done, just to smooth it back in, I used a glaze of Rhinox hide in all the crevices, just to transition it a little nicer. Now prepare your eyes for the next bit, because it's a little bit of a shock. This is Pro Acryl's Warm Gold. This is very bright, but I will not be highlighting it up further. I'll just be using the oil wash to bring it down. Now, with the last step being the oil wash, I had to fix him to his base because otherwise it was about to get real messy. So he comes with a scenic base, but I have added a few sticks and fish tank plants and tufts and stuff to it. And 1, 2, 3, there we go. Lovely and painted exactly in the manner of my shrine I made before, and I've also painted his spear to match the rocks. If you want to see how this is painted, watch that video.
What are you looking at?
I used Gorilla Glue to stick him to his base. The irony is not lost on me. I formed a small ring of Gorilla Glue dots around the outside of where his foot would go, and then used no more nails in these deep cavities that are sculpted in, because there are pegs on his feet that would fit nicely in there. The Gorilla Glue is the temporary hold that would hold it while the no more nails dried, because this is a big, heavy 3D printed miniature. It is hollow, but it's still massive, so it needs a little bit more strength just to hold it to its base, and that is what the no more nails will provide as it dries over a couple of days, but it does take a day or two to set, so the Gorilla Glue would be holding it in place for now, and I'll be going gentle with it. Next is the oil wash, some Winsor and Newton raw umber, a nice dark brown colour to muck up this boy in his jungle environment. I got an empty Citadel pot and popped some of that in there, and then the next step would be mixing it with white spirit. I went less to start with because you can always add more, but when you're mixing in a tiny pot like this, adding more white spirit is going to be difficult, so go less paint and then you can add more paint because you get more pigment in the, you know what I mean. I got my little industrial shaker out to give it a whiz. You could shake it by hand like this, but it's not going to mix as well as if you've got one of these. These are fantastic. I did a little back and forth, making sure that I had enough paint in there to get it as thick as I wanted it. And I did want it quite thick because I wanted a lot of grime build up, especially on the gold, to bring that really bright colour down. And I wanted the bone to look mucky as hell too. Once I tested it on my desk and found it was a consistency I liked, it was time to slap it all over my guy, and he got filthy. Some bits I took off while it was still wet, like on the face and upper edges of the fur, and some bits I waited till it was drier so it was harder to take off, like the bone and the gold, to give it a more dirty, grubby build-up look. I left that to dry overnight, and there were only a few finishing touches to do in the morning. I mixed a rust colour, a green and a black to make a pigment I was happy to slap all over the base, just in the same manner I had done with my shrine previously, because these will be part of the same army. Yes, I am actually going to play games with this massive guy as the exalted demon of Khorne that Forge World no longer produce. Then I gave him a little black base rim after those pigments were applied to apply variation in the colours to the bases, and he was done. Let's have a look at him.
Deep in the jungles of Gur, the apes of rage rule the jungle. They are sick of their environment being taken over, trees chopped down for forges by dwarves, orcs raiding their people, taking their kind for their pelts. The jungle spirits have risen, and they have awoken the beast. He will lead the apes of rage to a new dawn. Dawn of the planet of the apes of rage, and they will rise and bring war to the kingdoms. However, nobody knows the name of this large ape, towering above trees and buildings. They do not know what to cry when he crushes their villages.
Now, you guys get to name this ape. I'll be doing another Apes of Rage video next week, so we will reveal that name. So leave a comment of what you think this big, beautiful beast should be called. Thank you to my Patreons. Their names are over those reveal shots then. If you would like to support me too, check out my Patreon. Don't forget to check out the Dragon Trappers Lodge Patreon and my mini factory, all linked below. I will see you next week. Remember to subscribe. Don't miss out on the next Apes of Rage video. And I love you. I didn't know how to kind of end that tirade then, so I went with that. Remember to subscribe. Leave a like for the like god and a comment for the algorithm throne. And it is not a pile of shame. It is a pile of fun. See you next time. Peace.